Good morning, everybody. Welcome in to a Tuesday edition of Sports Daily on KFH. The IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240, if you would like to join the program. Thanks for listening this morning. Thanks for watching on our video stream as well. You can check it out on the KFH Facebook page, the KFH YouTube page, and the Sports Daily Twitter page. You can leave your comments right there. We'll see them on the screen as we go through today's show. I'm Tommy Castor. Jacob Albracht is out on vacation. So once again today and all week long, joined by Paul Savage. Paul, how we doing this morning? Happy Tuesday.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, same to you. Happy Tuesday to you as well. Doing fine, doing great. You know, something, we always say that, June, July, it's hard to find good stories. Man, you put together a darn good lineup of interesting stories. Stick with us today, everybody. We've got some really interesting stories that we're going to tackle on this show.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And of course, it wouldn't have happened without you, Paul, because you like to send, stories that you see and things that interest you. And so we're taking some of that today. We're taking some of the top stories that are going on in our neck of the woods and nationally, talking about all of that today here on the show. And like I mentioned before, you're more than welcome to join the show today. We'd love to hear from you again on the IHOP hotline at 869-1240. Coming up on the program today, we're going to talk about how Wichita State basketball and basketball playing each other. That came down yesterday as an announcement. We will discuss that in the next segment. We'll do a giveaway a little bit later on in the program as well. We'll talk some NFL and some new stadium news. And unfortunately, Paul's favorite TV show coming to an end. That's what you call a tease, Paul. I'm not gonna reveal what show it is. If you're a diehard listener of the show and you know Paul, you probably already know the answer to that question. But you'll have to hang with us. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on in the program in hour number 2. But we're going to kick off the show today with the story that we discussed yesterday that is now official. Wichita State has officially hired Brian Green as the new head coach of Shocker Baseball. Green comes from Washington State University, where he spent the last 4 seasons. Before that, he was at New Mexico State as the head coach. And then before that, spent time as an assistant at the University of Kentucky, where he worked with Wichita State Athletic Director Kevin Saul. This comes a week after Lauren Hibbs was informed that he would not be a candidate for the Wichita State head coaching position. So, Paul, the university makes it official. Brian Green goes on social media to announce it himself as well. It's happening. The Brian Green era is officially underway at Wichita State.
You know something, and I've kind of thought about this over the course of the last day or so here and there, and I've come to the conclusion that for Coach Green, this is going to be an interesting concept because, he has coached, been the head coach his last 2 jobs at very, very difficult schools to create a winning atmosphere in. New Mexico State and Washington State. Neither one of those, if we say college baseball, for instance, Tommy, do you think of La Cruces, New Mexico, or do you think of Washington State out in the burbs, way out in the forestry and the mountains and all that? No, you don't think of those schools. I mean, Washington State is probably 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there in probably, baseball lore in the Pac-12. Coming to Wichita State for this young man is going to be totally different. This is going to be something where, you look at the facilities. You look at this town, you look at the fan base that is right there waiting to join in your success. This is a town where it can be a lot easier to win, a lot easier to recruit, a lot easier to get to World Series than at any place he's ever been. He's at Wichita State. It's a place that I would take over half the Big 12 jobs, a third of the SEC jobs, and almost at this point with UCLA and USC leaving, other than Arizona State, maybe most Pac-12 schools. So, this is going to be interesting. But, this guy's going to have a chance to compete as a head coach with a great package, with a great program. He's going to have some tools in his belt to get the job done.
Well, you know what? I think going back to your point, when you say that he'll have a greater opportunity to go to the College World Series at Wichita State than any of his previous stops as head coach, I don't disagree with you, but it's still going to be difficult at Wichita State. The Shockers have not made the postseason in 10 years. It's the 10th straight year that Wichita State has not made the NCAA tournament. And so he's got his work cut out for him. We mentioned it yesterday on the show that, the majority of the players have officially entered the transfer portal at Wichita State. So, I would think that priority number one for Brian Green is to sit down with the existing players and, see what he can do. And I don't know how many of them are going to be willing to stick around at Wichita State. And you know what? Maybe Brian Green wants to build his own team and doesn't really want to keep anybody that's currently on the roster, maybe outside of Peyton Tolley, who's a superstar. And by the way, the only player who has not officially entered the transfer portal in the Wichita State baseball program as of right now. So that I don't know. I don't know what, his direction is, what his strategy is going to be, but I do know that we're in a state of a lot of turnover. And you know what, Paul, I think that brings up a topic that I want to discuss here for a couple of minutes on this, whole situation with Brian Green and Shocker baseball. And that is the turnover in the transfer portal with the players. We all know it's no secret that we're in a world right now where players are going to look to leave different programs for a variety of reasons, whether they're looking for more playing time, looking for NIL opportunities, looking for a fresh start, new coaches, whatever it is. It's happening a lot. And so I think that we would be naive to think that there wouldn't be any kind of turnover, even if Lauren Hibbs had been retained as the head coach at Wichita State. There was going to be turnover, right? Like that's just a natural part of this era of the transfer portal that we're living in right now. I wonder, though, what kind of mentality Brian Green has entering this program right now, knowing that all but one current players have entered the transfer portal. Is that more than he would have anticipated? Is that kind of right on par? Did he think that when he was talking with Kevin Saul, hey, you've got your work cut out for you to basically build a roster from the ground up? Or are we thinking that this is just kind of par for the course now that we're in the transfer portal era?
Haven't heard a story about how many guys are entering the portal at Washington State right now so that they can transfer to Wichita State. Have no idea. There'll probably be some. But you know what this is? This is an opportunity. May I give you an example of a portal and how it works? On this show, Sports Daily, Bruce Hurdle entered the portal, and he found another place, and the trade was made. Also, Tommy Castor was in the portal. Look, he'd entered the portal looking for a place to go, and Sports Daily snapped him up. This is an example of exactly where we're at with Wichita State and Coach Green. He's going to look into the portal. He's going to find some kids. I think he's going to go to some JUCOs. That's what I think. If you're at New Mexico,
he's done that at Washington State during the course of his career there. In fact, the last couple of seasons, he's used junior college players to bolster his roster and help lead them to some victories over the last couple of seasons.
Right, and this is a state. Kansas is a state who is really good JUCO baseball. I mean, we have about 5 or 6 baseball coaches who have coached their entire careers. McSpadden, Burrows. We got all kinds of guys. Joe Slaka from Garden. We got all kinds of people who have put a stamp on junior college baseball. And Coach Powers from Barton. I mean, we got all kinds of great baseball programs built by great coaches, built by guys that know what they're doing in the world of baseball. And I'm telling you right now, he probably will hit the Kansas JUCOs pretty hard because there's awfully good baseball right here in the state of Kansas. But with that being said, he's not going to have any problem filling a roster. There's going to be a lot of guys that are going to want to come to Wichita State. You got a new coach, you got a new program going. You got new life into this program. You got facilities almost second to none. I think the other day we were close to agreement. Maybe we didn't quite agree. Wichita State, top 3 to 5 programs with facilities in America. You know, look at the stadium. I mean, it's unbelievable for Wichita State. You know, we're acting like, oh gosh, who's Coach Green going to get to come in? I mean, there's nobody but one guy on the roster. Will he even be able to get 9 guys? You know, you got to play baseball with 9 guys. Will he even get 9 guys? Of course, he's going to get a bunch of guys because they're want to go.
Look, Paul, I don't have any kind of concern about the number of players that Coach Green is going to get. And you know what? Look, I'll tell you what doesn't concern me first, right, and then I'll tell you what does concern me a little bit after that. So what doesn't concern me is the fact that Kevin Saul and Brian Green have known each other for a long time and worked together at Kentucky. I understand the way that this business works, and Kevin Saul is going to make a hire for a guy that he's comfortable with. I get it. I understand that. I do wish that had been a little bit more transparent, from the beginning, but I do understand why Kevin Saul wanted to go down the path of Brian Green. That doesn't concern me whatsoever. It doesn't concern me that he's coming from a program like Washington State or New Mexico State before that, because he's had a track record of turning those programs around. While neither one of those schools made the NCAA tournament during his tenure there, he had marked improvement at New Mexico State from when he arrived to when he left, and then same thing at Washington State from when he arrived to when he left. The only thing that concerns me slightly with Brian Green is the fact that he doesn't have any ties to this part of the country and baseball in this part of the country. Paul, because you've worked in the world of coaching for a long time, how important relationships are in the world of recruiting, right? Building those relationships with those junior college coaches, with those high school coaches. They've got probably a level in the same way that Kevin Saul has a level of comfortability with Brian Green. I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I would imagine that these local high school coaches and these JUCO coaches probably have a level of comfortability with other coaches that have been here for a while, right? Brian Green, and I'm not saying he can't build it, because he certainly can build those relationships. He's got to be a high caliber relationship builder, but he comes in a little bit cold, a little bit blind by not having any ties to this part of the country, to the programs in this part of the world, if he wants to recruit from this area. So that's the only thing that I'm going to want to see from him, is how he intends to tackle local recruiting in this part of the country.
Well, there's such a thing as building relationships. And that's what he's going to do. I mean,
he's going to have to do that, right?
He's going to be allowed to walk into any high school JUCO office in the state of Kansas, well, anywhere in the Midwest, really, because he has that moniker, head coach, Wichita State. Oh, head coach of Wichita State. Well, that's right. So I'm just saying that those relationships will be built faster than you think. I know baseball guys. I've got many, 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 many good friends in the world of baseball. Baseball is a unique fraternity to be in. Baseball is very unique with how relationships work, and they work really quickly and they develop fairly quickly. And I just think that, and you did bring up Kevin Saul and his relationship with Coach Green, and I appreciate that, Tommy, about you. You bring that up because I think that is important, and I think that gives Coach Green a certain amount of go get what you need to do, get the job done, take care of business, because I know what kind of guy you are. I know that you can do the job. And right now, I'm on board with that. I mean, I have no reason, no evidence why to say this is a relationship with Brian Green and Wichita State that won't work beautifully. I mean, if you take advantage of the facilities and everything that Wichita State stands for and the history of Wichita State, and you can convey that to a young baseball recruit, you're going to get the kid. Or you can relate that to somebody who's in the portal that you really want that can help the team. You're going to get that kid. And so I guess what I'm saying is I'm going with this hire. I don't know that it would have been my first choice. I mean, I'm with everybody else. I think I would have liked to seen Coach Hibbs be given another given the chance, but understanding that that's not to be, I'm going to give Coach Brian Green all the benefit of the doubt and say, man, you can get the job done. You know what's going on. You've been in college baseball many, many, many years. You know what to do to build a baseball team. And the fact he's got one kid, that doesn't worry me in the least. You know what it tells me? New opportunities to build maybe even a better team. How about that? How's that for an attitude?
Does it concern you at all, Paul? And it doesn't me. So I'm going to first off preface it by saying this doesn't concern me at all, because I don't really care about this particular thing all that much. But I have chatter of people that have been concerned about the lack of connection to the glory days of Shocker baseball, the Gene Stevenson era and the Brent Kimnitz era. And, of course, you've as of now, we don't have any word about, any of the assistant coaches like Mike Pelfrey.
No, we
he's
don't.
going
That's
to be
right.
retained on the staff. We don't know that as of this point. Does it concern you at all about the fact that this is a hire that has no connection to the past and the glory days and the championships and all of that Shocker baseball has had historically?
Well, you can make a case that Notre Dame's last football hire had no connection to Newt Rockne if you want to. So, I mean, I guess, I guess in a weird way you could do that. But almost every hire at the Division I level in basketball, football, and now into baseball, they're all like that. They all bring their own connections. They all bring their own guys. They all bring in what they know worked for them, where they were, and which allowed them to get the job that the new job they're taking. So no, I guess to answer your question, no, I'm not concerned about the old days of Wichita State. You know what those are to me? They're a goal. That's what they are. They're a goal. That's where I want to get to. Now, it's a great goal.
They should be an expectation.
Yeah.
I think goal is a nice word. They should be the expectation.
Okay, the expectation. And if you don't meet that expectation, Coach Green, I'll be right there on the bandwagon with everybody else to run you out of town. If you do not meet, and you're given plenty of opportunity to meet those expectations, and it doesn't happen, I'm going to be on the bandwagon that says, we got to get we got to make a change. We got to go see if we can find another person to get this job done. Because after all, this is, of all the jobs at Wichita State, this is one that has expectations, has great expectations that are stated right up on the press box in the stadium. Those are your expectations for the whole world to see. And if you don't meet them, we'll go find someone else that will. And I'll be on board with that. And let's go find another one. And eventually we'll find that guy. I'm not saying it's Brian Green. I'm saying, why can't it be Brian Green? Since it's not going to be Lauren Hibbs, who I think both you and I would have liked to have seen given the chance. But that's not going to happen. I'm not going to make a big deal out of that. What I am going to say is that this guy knows Kevin Saul. Kevin Saul has made the determination, this is my guy. I'm comfortable with this guy. I know what this guy can do. Man, I can't criticize that whatsoever. And that's the way it's got to be, at least the way I see it. Now, I could be wrong. But if I'm wrong, Kevin Saul's wrong. Kevin Saul's wrong. It's his job. It's not my job. It's his job. But I kind of see where he's going. Got to be comfortable with the guys you hire. And now, obviously, as Jad said, Jad, you mind if I steal your quote again one more time from yesterday?
Yeah,
in fact, you just give it. You give the quote that you came up with.
Well, it's not so much of a quote. It's just that guarantee this time next year, we're going to have we're going to know exactly whether the Kevin Saul hire worked out or not. I mean, it's going to give us that opportunity to really know. We'll definitely know by this time next year, because he will have made these hires and we'll have seen the results.
There you go. And see, I wanted Jad, because I didn't want to steal Jad's comment. That was a darn good comment. We're going to know. Now, let's be fair, though, Tommy. Can I be fair for just a second? We're a show about fairness, correct?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thank you. Let me be fair, though. 1 year in, I don't know if we can quite make a judgment on how things are going. Now, things are going really, really good. Man, that was a great decision to hire Kevin Saul. Man, we did the right thing. This is really something. Congratulations to ourselves for this hire. But if his coaches are struggling, because it is the first year for all these people, and it's a situation where there's a certain amount of rebuilding, in both the men's, women's basketball programs, baseball, total rebuild with one guy left on the roster, if that stands, which I don't think it will. But we're going to be able to look at Kevin Saul and say, well, we're either headed in the right direction or, man, that was a great hire, one of the two. I don't know at the end of 1 year, though. Jed, I don't mean to steal your thunder
I think
on this.
you can.
But
I think you can. I think you can make a little bit of an accurate judgment after 1 year.
I do too. I do too.
I think that you can be able to say we're making progress or we're not making progress. Like I think that's fair to do after one season, having, Paul Mills and Terry Nooner and now Brian Green as coaches of these, major sports at Wichita State. I think that you can make a judgment call after 1 year, maybe not officially, maybe not, it's never going to work. But I think that you can tell if there's progress or not after one season, with this program. And now, look, I'll be the first to say, and I mentioned it yesterday on the show, I said it on social media last night. I was in the camp of advocating for Lauren Hibbs to get a chance to coach this team permanently and make it his program. That I was in that camp, officially on the record saying that. And I was vocal about it. But here's where I change. And here's where things are a little bit different with me than I think some of the people that I follow on social media, is that once the deal was done with Brian Green, it's done. It's done. There's nothing that anybody can do about it. There's nothing anybody can say about it. And it's not productive at all, in my mind, at least, to, start bashing this hire, because I don't know Brian Green. I don't know. I know his stats. I know what he's done at Washington State and at New Mexico State. Like, I know that, but I don't know what he can do at Wichita State. And so he's got my full support now. It's not worth my breath to, argue and whine and complain about Lauren Hibbs not getting a permanent shot. It's done. Kevin Saul made the decision that he saw best, that he thought was best for this program moving forward. It happens to be Brian Green. I'm going to welcome this guy in with open arms, and I want to see him have all the success in the world. I don't want to go through, and I know, Paul, you don't either, and the fan base doesn't, and Kevin Saul doesn't. The entire Shocker community doesn't want to go through this same thing a couple of years from now. They want this to work with Brian Green long term. So this guy has got my full support to get it done.
Well, how much time are you going to give him, Tommy? Let me just throw that out. How much time do you want to give Brian Green to say, at least for you, see some turnaround? How much time?
I think that it's going to depend a little bit upon what happens this offseason with the transfer portal. If he can get some players to return, and if he can put a good class together, then I think at that point, expectations change a little bit. If it's a complete rebuild from the start and he's basically got it from the foundation and he's got to build it up from the studs, I don't know, that might change things a little bit too. So the jury in my mind is still out on how long, to give a guy like Brian Green. He's got my support here off the bat, and so I'm looking forward to that. I want to continue this conversation because there's one important element that we didn't get to when it comes to Brian Green as the new head coach of Shocker baseball. So we'll take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about that, and then we're also going to talk about basketball and Jayhawk basketball facing off in Kansas City in December. All that and a whole lot more on the other side on Sports Daily.
Sports Daily is on KFH.
Welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily on a Tuesday. Tommy Castor and Paul Savage, Chad Chambers producing the show. Been talking about Brian Green, the new head coach for Shocker Baseball, officially announced yesterday. A press conference will be held tomorrow afternoon at 4:30 at X Stadium to officially introduce Brian Green as the new head coach of Shocker Baseball. And we will have Coach Green right here on Sports Daily Thursday morning at 10:25. So make sure to set an alarm on your phone or put it in your calendar. That way you can hear that interview as we talk to the new head man for Shocker Baseball. The IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240. Let's go to the IHOP hotline right now. Scott is on the line, got some thoughts on Shocker Baseball. Scott, good morning. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I'm not trying to knock the hire, but I'm in my mid-40s. Grew up with Shocker Baseball, loved it. Obviously, when I was a kid, going to baseball camps, and I think I kind of agree with what everybody probably feels the same. And I don't understand why Lauren Hibbs wasn't given more of a shot. But I mean, if you look, and like I said, not to knock Kevin Green right off the bat, but I just don't. I'm not sure I really get this hire. Like, his record is barely above 500 at Washington State, who's not sure I've ever seen them in the College World Series or Super Regional or anything. And to barely be above 500, like I said, Kevin Saul, I'm sure, has got a good plan. I'm not really sure I get this hire at all. I really don't. Like I said, we'll see where it goes, but yeah, I just don't understand why. And hopefully he does keep some guys like Mike Pelfrey around. You know, he's been through the program, brought up through Brent Kemnitz, who's probably, if not the best pitching coach of college baseball of all time. He's got to be right up there. So hopefully he does at least retain some guys on the staff, because other than that, looking at his track record, not sure I really get this hire. But anyway, just like I said, longtime baseball guy in this community for my whole life, and hopefully this turns out the right way. I'm just not quite sure I get this hire.
Yeah, Scott, thanks for the call. Appreciate that. And I think that's kind of the general mindset of the fan base. And that's a really good segue, Paul, into the other topic in this that I wanted to get to and continue on the discussion. And that is the fan base, right? We can talk about our expectations. We can talk about our timeline, what we expect from Brian Green as the new head coach for Shocker Baseball. We can talk about what Kevin Saul wants to do. And we've discussed that at length, and retaining players and trying to get them to exit the transfer portal and come back, retaining assistant coaches like Mike Pelfrey. All of those things I would think should be on the table as the strategy moving forward, getting Brent Kemnitz to, champion this move and go and talk to donors and that sort of thing. Like, all of those things in my mind are on the table, but the fan base, that's an issue. That's a topic that we have not talked about in relation to this particular hire, Paul. As far as, in your mind, what is it going to take to unify the fan base? And I know that can be an easy answer, right? Winning baseball games, right? But I think that there's got to be a little bit more than that. There's got to be a connection to this fan base who, like Scott mentioned, he grew up watching Shocker Baseball in the glory days of Gene Stevenson and all of that. And ever since Stevenson left, through the really bad Todd Butler era, and then the Eric Wedge era that was up and down, and now we're into this era right now with Brian Green, the fan base has been left wanting more. They've been left in the dust. We've seen attendance decline. We've seen people not showing up to X Stadium, not supporting this program. I don't think that's the fault of the fan base. I think it's the fault of the program and the university not putting as much of an emphasis on baseball as they should. How does the university and Brian Green and this baseball program get fans back?
There you go. That's the ultimate question. I've been waiting for this question, and let me give you my answer, because I think other people may have different answers. I'm going to give it to you step by step by step, if that's all right. My first step is you start bringing in players that we know are really good, players that show on the field, they're really good. You start bringing those kind of guys in. I'm not talking about, just those guys they're good baseball players, and there's a lot of those kind of guys. I'm not talking about those guys. I'm talking about the guys that we have come to know and grow, know and love in baseball lore here at Wichita State. You start bringing those guys in. Then the next little step is now you start winning regular season AAC championships. Then you start winning a few AAC tournament championships. Well, then you get yourself to the worlds. Then you get yourself to the regionals, and you win a few games in the regional. Then you get yourself to a super regional. You see where I'm going with this thing? And then, of course, obviously, you get to the World Series, and eventually you win a World Series or two or three, and then all of a sudden you'll have everybody. It's got to be fairly quick. It's going to have to be quick. I don't know what the length. Maybe Tommy, the length of the contract for Coach Green.
We don't know that. That's one thing that has not been revealed yet. Is the length of the contract. We don't know that. We don't know the amount of money yet. We also don't know if there was a buyout that was required to Washington State University and what that buyout amount was that Wichita State would have had to pay Washington State. Those are all three things that as of right now have not been reported on. Right. So we don't know that. We'll find that out. I do want to mention, so on our video stream, of course, like I said at the top of the show, you can leave your comments on the video stream. They'll pop up right up on the screen. Zachary comments and says, we had a coach of the year who appeared to be ready to spend a considerable amount of time with the Shockers, and we traded that for a guy who has jumped ship every time he got a chance. I think to that point, I don't want to fault Coach Green for leaving for better opportunities because I do think that life of a coach, that happens quite a bit. But I do think that there is an active amount of concern, I think is the word, or at least displeasure with the process. And, so Brian Green and Kevin Saul, they've got a little bit of an uphill battle here with this hire to win back the confidence and win back the trust of Shocker faithful, right? And so I think the expectations are there. Look, the bottom line is that if Brian Green, and I'm just going to be very frank here and I'm just going to lay it out on the line.
Please
you tell me if you think I'm ridiculous, Paul.
No, please tell me.
If Brian Green has the same level of success at Wichita State that he had at Washington State or at New Mexico State, he will not last as Wichita State coach.
No,
he's got to do better. He's got to do better than what he did at his two previous stops. Now, he did good. Like, he turned those programs around, but he didn't make the NCAA tournament. That didn't happen. His winning percentage slightly over 500 at Washington State. He had a losing record in Pac-12 play this year. So I understand all of the reasons why he was given the job. Okay, I get that. But he's got to do more than what he did at his previous stops in order, in my opinion, to meet or exceed expectations that the Shocker fan base has and to try to win these fans back.
Well, if you're going to play the game of expectations, but it looks like to me he met expectations of both those places, because neither one of those places are going to allow you to do the things that you want to do at Wichita State. You're going to be able to have more success at Wichita State than you will New Mexico State and Washington State.
He got a contract extension at Washington State, and he had a winning percentage slightly over 500 at Washington.
And why is that?
Clearly those expectations at Washington State are lower than what they would be at Wichita State.
Well, hello, right? Thank you. That is correct. No, that's exactly right. And he, if you look at it in those terms, then I guess you've got to classify him as a success.
Sure, at those previous stops. Right. But what I'm saying is that if he duplicates that level of success that he had at Washington State, at Wichita State, he's not going to last.
Yeah.
And so it's got to be more. The bar has got to be set higher. And I know that it will be. I'm not doubting that it will be. There's not going to be a situation where Brian Green or Kevin Saul will, if he goes slightly over 500, where they're going to say that's acceptable. The Shockers went slightly over 500 this season under Lauren Hibbs. They were 30-25. That wasn't acceptable. That didn't result in Lauren Hibbs getting the permanent job. So I think those expectations have to be set higher. And, what I want to see happen, I don't know how realistic this is, but what I want to see happen is I want to see the fan base, regardless of your feelings of the hire and the way that it was made and not retaining Lauren Hibbs and all of that, at this point, the decision is made, the deal is done. Brian Green is the new coach at Wichita State. Let's rally around him. Let's try to do everything that we can, to help this program get back to a level of excellence where they had been for so long. Let's go back to the Guy Hop hotline, 869-1240. Vince is on the line, has some thoughts on Shocker baseball. Vince, good morning. What's on your mind?
Oh, hey, I thought Lauren Hibbs would be a great hire for this, but I think you guys are being very, very optimistic about this hire. I will say that in my mind, if he doesn't get over 500 the first 2 years, Saul's better be looking for another job. I mean, that's just, to me, it's a bad hire.
Do you think, Vince, that this particular hire for Kevin Saul is more critical for him than the basketball hires? Like, do you think that Kevin Saul has tied his fate long-term for his job to Brian Green and having success with baseball?
Well, I don't know that people were real excited about the basketball hire, but this one is just, I mean, everybody's upset over this from the standpoint that Hibbs was the right guy for the job. I mean, he was showing that just as an interim. And so you go outside of that, you get a guy that's unproven, that didn't have the head coach experience that Hibbs had. He wasn't the coach of the year or anything like that. So, I mean, I think he's tying his own job to this hire.
Well, I would guess that would be the case. And I think that's exactly right, Vince. There's no question. He's tying his job to these hires. And do you think he's going to go out and hire some dunderhead that I'm just going to take this guy for the heck of it and tie his job to it? No, there is a reason that Kevin Saul is the AD, and he's going to make decisions, and he's going to put his neck on the line as well as these coaches. You have success at Wichita State, and because of all these particularly these hires, as our buddy Jad Chambers always says, we'll know in a year where we're at with the job that Kevin Saul is doing, and Kevin Saul realizes that. I just have to go back to the fact that I can't seem to sweep under the rug, and that is he's got to have a reason. There's got to be a reason for these hires. I don't know what it is on some of them. But there's got to be a reason. He has confidence in himself. And by the way, this is the most visible hire he's going to make, even with basketball and even with women's basketball. This is big. And like I said, I go back to the fact that every time you drive down 21st Street, you see the success of Wichita State that has not been there for a long time. You look up on the stadium, you see that success. We haven't had it in 10 years. It's got to come back. Why isn't it back? We got some of the finest facilities in the entire country in a great baseball town, and we can't get it back. Now, somebody's got to come get it back. Kevin Saul's putting his job basically on the line, saying, this is my guy. And for that, I don't
know. I'm going to interrupt you, Paul, because I don't know if it is Brian Green. And I think that's Vince's point. I think it very well could be, but I don't know. Nobody really knows if it is. I mean, time will tell. And Vince, thanks for the call. I do know that, the one thing, Paul, is that when it comes to Kevin Saul, and I'll be, like I mentioned before, I'll be the first to admit I didn't like the move to not retain Lauren Hibbs. That being said, Kevin Saul has been the most aggressive and bold and visible athletic director that Wichita State has had in a long time.
Boy, no kidding.
He's not complacent. He's not settling for the status quo. He's not looking at mediocre results or average results. This is okay. We're just going to keep riding this wave. No, he's going out and he's tying his own fate to some of these hires, whether it's Paul Mills or Terry Nooner or now Brian Green. He is tying his own fate to the hires. And so whether or not you like the hire of Brian Green, and for me, the jury is still out. I want to give the guy a chance, but I don't know. I am grateful for the fact that we have an aggressive athletic director at Wichita State who is willing to go out and put his own neck on the line. Whether or not I like the hire, that's irrelevant at this point. It's done. The guy deserves our support to see how he can build this program. He hasn't even made his way to Wichita yet. So at this point, I'm willing to put aside my thoughts that the move should have never been made. That's done. That's out of the picture. And I do appreciate Kevin Saul's dedication to being aggressive and to trying to meet and exceed those expectations that Shocker baseball and basketball have had for a long time now.
Isn't that what you
All
expect
right,
of
what
an
a-
AD? Before
Absolutely.
you go, isn't that what you expect? Because that's what I expect.
For sure.
You put your job
Absolutely.
on the line every hire. That's the way it's supposed to be.
And it doesn't make him immune to criticism. And I
No,
think that
it
we can
does not.
absolutely be. I think we can be critical
Right.
if these hires
Right.
don't work out. We can talk about that and talk about that they were bad decisions. Hopefully that they're not. Hopefully we want to see them succeed, but he is bold enough to put his neck on the line to make those hires. And I do appreciate that. We'll talk more about Brian Green and all that. Of course, like I mentioned, we'll have Brian on the show on Thursday morning to talk about him being the new head coach of Shocker Baseball. So looking forward to that. All right, that's going to wrap up that discussion. On the other side, Shocker basketball and Jayhawk basketball, Wichita State and KU facing off in Kansas City. We'll talk about that and a giveaway on the other side. It's Sports Daily. Tommy Castor, Paul Savage, Jad Chambers coming right back.
sports talk.
All right, let's do this thing. Go!
Sports Daily is on KFH.
Wow, Paul, it's a busy Tuesday. There's a lot coming down the pipe here today. We had our rundown of the show all put together, and man, there's just a lot happening. That's kind of the way that sometimes it works. Your breaking news that came out just maybe like 20, 30 minutes ago while we were talking about the new head coach for Shocker Baseball. Speaking of a shocker, this is a shocker, Paul. The PGA Tour, Live Golf, and the DP World Tour have announced a merger. So these entities will be merging together. We know that the PGA Tour and Live Golf have been embroiled in lawsuits and controversies and all of this over the last couple of years since Live Golf and the Saudi Arabia-backed golf league came to prominence. The PGA Tour has been fighting them tooth and nail. And now a shocker that I don't think anybody saw coming. The PGA Tour and Live Golf are merging. How about that?
Well, I was blown away. And I think when you texted me this was going on, and I did not know this, I texted you back, wow, because that is a wow deal. Live Golf and the PGA. Who would have ever thought? That's like all of a sudden dogs and cats living together, and this is just crazy. Now, I'm going to have to wait and see the details. Probably there's an article out there that I haven't seen yet that we'll start getting some details as to how this merger works. But the reason I'm so surprised is there's true animosity between these groups.
Absolutely,
I thought they didn't like each other. I thought each group thought, I thought each group thought the other group was the worst thing in the world to ever happen to golf. So this has caught me off guard, and I think it's caught you off guard too, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Apparently the players didn't know either. It's not like the tours informed the players that this was going to be happening. So they're caught off guard in the same way that we are. Man, it's just insane. We're going to get more info on this and hopefully try to talk about it more in the second hour. That and Shocker and Jayhawk basketball playing against each other in Kansas City. We'll talk about that in hour number 2. A lot of other stuff on tap here as we get into hour number 2 here on the program. But before we take a break, let's do a giveaway. We didn't do a giveaway yesterday, so we're going to do a giveaway right now here on the show. And it's actually a pretty cool giveaway. George Michael and Wham! It's the tribute show. It's called George Michael Reborn, a tribute to George Michael and Wham! It's going to be Saturday, June 17th, 7:30 p.m. at the Orpheum Theater. We're going to give away 2 pairs of tickets right now to that event for callers number 2 and callers number 3 on the IHOP hotline at 869-1240. You can go and enjoy that show courtesy of Sports Daily.
You just
good luck to you.
Give and give
Look
and
at
give.
that.
Tommy Castor, you're the most giving man I've ever met.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So good luck and happy calling to win that great prize. We're going to come back and get into all of this stuff that we've got coming up hot and heavy. Also just announced by Shocker Softball, a new contract extension for Christy Breadventer. We're going to talk about that and so much more in hour number 2. Stay with us. Sports Daily comes back.
Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour number 2 of Sports Daily on KFH. Tommy Castor, along with Paul Savage, in for Jacob Albracht this week. Chad Chambers producing the show. And, of course, as always, the IHOP hotline is open at 869-1240. You can join the show there. You can also watch our video stream on the KFH Facebook page, the KFH YouTube page, and the Sports Daily Twitter page. Join the show there. Leave your comments on the screen. We'll get to them as hour number 2 rolls on. Paul, I've been thinking during the break a little bit more about this breaking news that came out last hour that the PGA Tour and Live Golf are officially merging. The more that I think about this, the more angry I get about this, because
What?
we were conditioned. If you're a golf fan, if you're a PGA Tour fan, which I am, I consider myself a PGA Tour fan. I was conditioned for the last 2+ years to despise live golf, to despise everything live golf stands for, that it's blood money from the Saudis, that it's, it's unethical, that the tour, that, the breakaway tour will, damage and destroy the integrity of the golf world, all of this stuff. I was conditioned to believe that from the mouth of the PGA Tour themselves. Like, they created this entire narrative about how bad the live golf tour was with the people that were funding it and all of that. And I believed it. And I didn't watch a minute of live golf. I didn't like the golfers that were leaving. I grew up a Phil Mickelson fan. I stopped liking Phil Mickelson, all of that. I was conditioned to believe all of that. And here we are 2 years later, and out of the blue, there's a merger. Like, are we just supposed to forget about everything that the PGA Tour conditioned the fans to believe for the last 2 years?
Yeah, I pulled for Lefty too. I mean, I really did. I was, but here's the thing that I try to look at with sports. And that is that it's not political. I don't want my sports to be political. I don't want anybody to tell me, and if you have an opportunity to go make some more money and it's with another golf tournament, I'm okay with it. I mean, if it's legal to do, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. Go do what you want to do. Go do what you got to do to support your family. So I try to keep all politics out. I didn't really get involved when Kaepernick was kneeling and when all the kneeling in sports was going on. I left that to the political side. I never talked about that in the world of sports. Sports is what you and I do, what we love. It's the great thing that brings people together. It's a uniter. So that's the way I always looked at it. But you're right. It's obvious these two groups did not care for each other, and that's putting it mildly. So I was blown away, too, about the merger. But I get it. I understand it. I mean,
at the end of the day, money wins out, right?
Isn't that true?
I guess money cures all, right?
Right.
I mean, these two organizations had been embroiled in lawsuits and countersuits and, public feuding, and the commissioner of the PGA, Jay Monahan, and the leader of Live Golf, Greg Norman, the legendary Greg Norman, just, going at each other publicly at press conferences and in interviews. Then you had players being pitted against each other. Rory McIlroy was a champion for the PGA Tour. And then you had all of these other golfers like Phil Mickelson and Koepka and others that were on the live golf side because they were making a lot more money on that side. And they didn't care about where the money was coming from. But all we heard about from the PGA Tour was how evil and bad live golf was, because the money was coming from bad places and a government with the Saudi Arabia government that, had blood on their hands and all of this stuff. And I don't get into politics really either, but I'm just, when it bleeds into sports and I'm conditioned to believe that, there's a good side and an evil side, I took the side of the good. I wanted to watch the PGA Tour because I felt like that was worthy and true and pure and clean. And now all of a sudden, like, I think at the end of the day, with this merger, the PGA Tour comes off looking really, really bad.
Well,
like, they look really bad in this merger. Live Golf looks great. They accomplished their goal. The players look really good. They're making a lot more money now than they were before. I think the PGA Tour looks really bad in all of this.
Well, here, it's kind of interesting the way you look at that. Everybody's pure. Well, nobody's pure. Everybody has something that they're trying to coerce or hide or whatever the case. So I get that. But when you look at the Live Golf Tournament, you probably didn't support them because they weren't getting all the great golfers that you would want to see, or at least not the quantity.
They had a lot of good golfers. They did,
but they didn't have the guys that viewers want to see. I mean, they didn't have the end guys. They didn't have the guys that you want to follow, that you have this feeling for. They did not have them. They had Phil. They had a few of the others, but they didn't have enough of the guys that you want to follow on a week-to-week basis, tournament-to-tournament basis. They just didn't have that. And the fact that Liv was able to coerce, and I'm going to use the word coerce if you don't mind, a merger between the two leagues is unbelievable to me. And you know what it tells me? Money. There is an infinite amount of money that can be used by Liv to get this thing going. And I think the PGA probably looked at it and said, do we want to fight this battle or do we just go ahead and merge? Now, if in your mind, live is all so bad, it's blood money and this, why the heck is the PGA merging with a blood-sucking organization?
Dollar signs.
Dollar
Signs.
sign.
Like it.
Well,
I mean,
that's
all it is. They saw
First
the
time.
PGA Tour and Jay Monahan over the last 2 years. First off, they saw that Live Golf was not going away. That, I think that there was this thought process that, it's just going to be this renegade tour that will be around for a short period of time, and then it'll fail, it'll flop, it'll flame out. But Live Golf had a significant amount of money behind it, and it didn't matter if they were losing money hand over fist. That didn't matter because they had the money to back it up, and so they continued on. It didn't matter that they were on the CW and nobody cares about the CW. That didn't matter. It didn't matter that, that they were barely getting any viewers and people to care. Like, that didn't matter. What mattered was they were still around, and they weren't going anywhere. And the PGA Tour looked at their business model and looked at their bottom line and decided that regardless of all of this bluster and all of this, all the fighting and the just everything that has happened over the last 2 years with the PGA Tour fighting against Live Golf, I guess they decided if you can't beat them, join them, right? Like, I guess we'll go ahead and accept the blood money too. And look, I don't have an issue with that necessarily. Like I said, I don't get involved in politics, but the PGA Tour made such a major stand against the ethical, the unethical operation of Live Golf. And now they're changing course. They're doing a complete 180 and they're accepting the money in a merger. Doesn't sit well with me.
Well, I know you were born, but I know it wasn't last night. And I know you're not so naive to think that money doesn't make a difference in these things. And it's amazing how that always works out. And, the PGA was talking about it, this isn't about the money for a long, long time. We don't want them here. It's about the money. Not about the money. And lesson of life, pay attention, everybody. If you haven't figured this out, when anybody says it's not about the money, it's about the money. That's lesson of life. One of the first lessons you ought to learn. But anyway, with that being said, I'm not surprised that the merger eventually happened. But I am surprised that it happened now because it looked like to me the PGA was winning. Now, this is just an observation. I really don't know. I don't have the dollars to look at. I don't know how, viewership is not as great in live tournaments. I get that. I'm pretty sure that that's the case. It looked like to me the PGA was winning. Why then, for goodness sakes, do they decide to merge and give Live a new life? I'm kind of asking that. The articles that I'm looking at, I'm not quite sure I'm seeing. Tommy, do you have some insight as to why the merger was made? I mean, other than
I don't know.
Money. I mean, sure,
it's money, right? Like it's money. It's the business model. It's the bottom line. I don't know, and I've not seen an article that has Jay Monahan, the commissioner of the PGA, really talking about it. I'm sure we'll find out more as time goes on. But I think at the end of the day, Live Golf looks really good in this. They accomplished their goal. The players look really good in this. They accomplished their goal, and that's great. The PGA Tour looks really bad. They fought tooth and nail to get rid of Live Golf and to extinguish Live Golf from the landscape of men's professional golf. Didn't happen, and now they're merging. They made such a big stand about the whitewashing of all of the bad things that the Saudi Arabia government has done over the years. They made such a big stand about all of it and such a big stink about it for 2 years. Went to court, lawsuits, all this stuff, and now all of a sudden they're merging. So I think they look really bad.
I took it off. I took the story off my computer. You still got it up? What's the name of the new league conference? What are they going to call? What are they going to call this?
I don't think they've announced that. So it's the PGA Tour, it's Live Golf, and then the DP World Tour, which used to be the European Tour.
Okay,
all three of them have merged. I'm more interested in finding out what it's going to mean for these players that were part of Live Golf, if they can play in majors and PGA Tour events, if they can play in the Ryder Cup, like all of that. I'm sure time will tell and we'll figure all that out. JB on our YouTube page mentions about, pro wrestling and about the days, 20, 25 years ago when the WWF bought WCW and how, they merged and how that hurt the industry for years. I do think there's a little bit of a similarity there, JB, and thanks for the comment. A little bit different too, considering that Live Golf was a breakaway tour and before then there was really no competition. So a little bit apples and oranges there, but I do appreciate the comment and appreciate the comparison there.
I saw him
and
make
Paul,
that,
you mentioned
I saw that
go
comment
ahead.
too, and I was just thinking to myself, wow, just recently WWE has also been accused of accepting the Saudi blood money because they have those live events now in Saudi Arabia. So
Yeah, but they
it all
don't
comes
sell
together.
But they don't sell beer there.
No, they probably don't.
I mean, there definitely is, and I don't know how much you guys have followed, all of this, but I've watched a couple of documentaries and read some articles about how the Saudi government, we don't have to get into it on this show, but how the Saudi government has really, really intentionally used the world of sports to try to improve their standing in the world. And so Live Golf was one of those examples.
You can't blame them for trying. They're trying to do something. I don't know that it's working. I don't know that it worked with this, but they're going to try. I mean, that's important to them, I guess. So they're doing what they need to do. But man, they won. They won this deal.
They absolutely
this
did.
Is
they
a 100% win for them.
won. Yep, it's a loss for the PGA. It's a win for Live Golf. I think it will all work out and be okay, but I think the optics of it right now for the PGA are not good. And of course, we'll continue to follow it as developments continue on over the next couple of days. Another piece of breaking news, Paul, that I want to get to here before we take our first break of the hour. Head coach at Wichita State has agreed to a contract extension that runs through 2028. So, of course, we started the first hour by talking about the new baseball coach at Wichita State, Brian Green, and now some softball news. Christy Bredbender will be at the helm of Shocker softball for years to come, agreeing to that contract extension through 2028. And Paul, I would say incredibly deserved for Christy.
Yeah, and I'm going to say that with all the conversation we've had for Kevin Saul, congratulations, Kevin Saul. Boy, this is a move that I agree with. I know that, Tommy, I think you're agreeing as well. Congratulations, Kevin Saul, as much as you're catching flack right now for the baseball hire. Congratulations on this extension. This is a big keep for Wichita State athletics.
It is, and so as we talked about, Kevin Saul putting himself on the line by making these hires in men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball. I would say equally, if not even more important for Kevin Saul is to lock up the best softball coach that Wichita State has ever had. I mean, bringing that program to national prominence. And then, of course, all of the upgrades and renovations that are going to be happening to Wilkins Stadium. The softball program, I mean, you look at that program, I would say right now as the banner carrier for Wichita State athletics, right? Like it is the program that is the furthest along in the development, that we've seen the most amount of success over the last couple of years. And I would say that is just as, if not even more important than making additional hires, is locking up Christy Bredbender.
Right. And the other side of that too is you lock her up, because how surprised would you have been, Tommy, to get news some SEC team signs Christy Bredbender to as their coach, or some Big 12 team signs her, or somebody else big name, maybe a USC or somebody like that, somebody big signs her, because I'll tell you what, without this contract, I don't think she'd be here long. So congratulations to Kevin Saul and all the guys out there. This was done right. This was done timely. Kudos to you, because I don't think there will be a single soul in the city of Wichita that says this was not a good re-signing.
I also am a little bit, and I'll be completely honest, I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist just in general in my life. I always like looking, behind the scenes on things.
Oh,
and,
you dog, you.
It makes me wonder the timing of this to deflect a little bit of attention away from the hiring of Brian Green.
Do you really think so?
Am I wrong? I don't know. I mean, it's really, really good news. And it's something that I think that everybody can rally behind, right? Like this is I would say 100% of the fan base in the Shocker community will say this is an awesome development, and well-deserved, much needed, really important. And oh, by the way, I've completely forgotten about the baseball hire that happened yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, just real quick, what goes on at Area 51, Tommy?
Isn't that the UFO place?
Yeah, I mean, because after all, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracies going on down there.
Right. But I will say that
Now, Jad's
when I say
giggling, so come on, Tommy. That was a joke. I'm sorry, I had to explain the joke. I mean,
no,
there's
I know,
no
I know what Area
conspiracy to
51 is.
sign the softball coach to an extension. It's not a conspiracy. I don't believe.
I just think the timing is a little interesting, but regardless, very, very well deserved for Christy Breadbinner, who agreed to a contract extension
Oh.
that will run through the 2028 season. That
Right.
news was announced by Shocker Softball
Right.
this morning. We're going to go ahead and take our first break of the hour. By the way, before we take a break, congratulations to Earl and Tyler. They were the ones that won the pair of tickets to see George Michael Reborn, a tribute to George Michael and Wham at the Orpheum Theater on June 17th. We'll give away another pair of tickets on the program tomorrow, so hang on for that. And once again, congratulations to Earl and Tyler for winning those tickets. When we come back, I promise we will finally talk about Wichita State and KU basketball facing off in Kansas City in December. That announcement came down yesterday. Also some news on the NFL front and Paul's favorite sports TV show of all time coming to an end. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break right here. It's Tommy Castor and Paul Savage on Sports Daily. Hang on. Welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily on KFH. Tommy Castor and Paul Savage, Jad Chambers producing the program. Your call is always welcome on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Hope everybody is enjoying Wichita River Festival week this week downtown. It's always a fun time. And tomorrow night is the Highland Dairy Ice Cream Social beginning at 6:30, goes until 8 o'clock on Douglas. You can come down and enjoy a complimentary bowl of Highland Dairy ice cream. Yours truly will be there scooping the ice cream. I'm not sure I'm a great scooper of ice cream on my end, but I'm going to do my best, Paul. I'm going to see if I can do a good job at that.
Well, here's what I want to know. If I come down and I'm in your line, will I get an extra scoop or will I not get an extra scoop?
I don't know the rules. Like nobody's told me exactly what the parameters are. Like, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble if I give you an extra scoop.
Well, what are they going to do? Put you in ice cream jail? I mean, I want to.
But I don't know. Paul, I'm a rule follower. I'm not a rule breaker. They tell me how I need to do it, and I'm going to take care of it.
I just got to say this, Tommy. They've called you a celebrity scooper. They could revoke your celebrity
That
status.
is right. Yes, that could happen.
Yeah.
So if that's on the table, then Paul, I'm sorry. You're not going to get an extra scoop. In fact, you might have to go to the back of the line because I don't want to do anything. I don't want to do anything that will have any kind of appearance of impropriety. I want to handle things. I want to keep that celebrity status. So unfortunately, Paul, I'm not going to be able to take care of you.
Oh, geez. Golly. Okay. Wow.
That's gonna be tomorrow night. It'll be a lot of fun down on Douglas. The Highland Dairy Ice Cream Social beginning at 6:30, and of course, that's only one of the big events happening with River Festival this week. And Odyssey is proud to be a part of a lot of those great events downtown for the annual River Festival in Wichita. All right, Paul. Big news that came down yesterday. We're finally getting to it on the program. By the way, if you missed any of our discussion about the new Shocker baseball coach Brian Green, if you missed our conversation about what else did we talk about? We talked about Live Golf and the PGA Tour merging. If you missed any of the big topics, you can always go back and listen on the Odyssey app on the podcast page. You can pull up all of that and listen to our discussion earlier in the hour. But a topic that we wanted to talk about earlier on in the show, we're getting to right now: Shocker basketball, Jayhawk basketball. People have been for years for these two programs to play each other in a regular game. They have not faced off in a regular season game against each other since 1993. That looks to be no more. Multiple reports yesterday that WSU and KU basketball will face off against each other on December 29th at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. Paul, your initial thoughts on that? I mean, it's been a long time. These two teams have not played each other since 1993. It's been 30 years. Before that, they did play every year from 84 to 93. KU went 8-1 during that stretch. The last time these two teams faced off in any capacity was going back to the NCAA tournament in 2015, where, of course, the Shockers beat KU 78-65. So your thoughts on this news?
You say this has been going on for years. No, my friend, it's been going on for decades. That's how long this has been going on for. And finally, they're going to play a game, a regular season game, that is. Let's make sure we understand that this is a regular season game, and they're going to play. Now, Tommy, this just irks the heck out of me why KU won't play Wichita State. And quite frankly, Wichita State ought to be playing K-State once a year, KU once a year, and it should happen because this is the state of Kansas. We're all Kansans. This is good for the state of Kansas. They're almost free games because there's no airplane expense to go. Most of these games, you won't get the kids out of school because you can almost go and come on the same night. It's a 2-hour bus drive to whatever school you're going to. I'm just telling you, Tommy, there's no reason in the world for this not to happen. Now, some reason it's happened for 30 years, 3 decades. This has not happened. I don't think it's Wichita State. I think it's KU. I don't think KU wants to take the chance of getting beat by Wichita State. That's what I think this really boils down to. And perhaps in the Greg Marshall years, they would look at a program like Wichita State and say, you know something? We really have nothing to gain by playing Wichita State or even beating Wichita State. But boy, what if they sneak up on us one year and they win? We have a lot to lose and not much to gain. We're not going to alter how much money we make. We'll bring in some other schlack team and we'll pay them their fee and they'll come and play. We'll get our win and they'll go back and wherever they came from. And it really irks me. it really irks me that the University of Kansas never wanted to play Wichita State. Now, I would think, Tommy, and I know that you're a KU guy. You're a KU elitist, and I understand that.
Okay.
And here's the thing.
I mean, I would disagree with that, but okay, go on.
But here's what I would think a guy like you would want. I would think you would want the opportunity to come to Wichita once a year, or have Wichita come up to their gym and play a game and win, so that you could lord it over all those lowly Wichita State people. Aha, see? You think you can compete with us? Year after year, we beat the pants off of you. You found your place. I would think that for a guy like you, Tommy, that would be very attractive. I would think that a lot of KU people would say, man, oh man, I want the opportunity to whip Wichita State. And I don't understand why you guys don't take the opportunity to do that. K-State, I think, would be a lot of fun too. So, Tommy, here's my solution. And it's a heck of a solution. This isn't the first time I've brought this up in my life, but I'm going to bring it up with you because that's the first time with you. If there's a House of Representative listening to my voice on this show, and you're in the Kansas State House of Representatives, or if you're a Kansas senator, you're in the Senate up in Topeka, and you can hear this conversation, put forth a law that says Wichita State, KU, and K-State need to play baseball that's what elitists say. That's what elitists do. That's what you guys do. That's what you always do. See, now hold on just a second. And let me tell you why. Because it would be good for the state of Kansas. It would bring a ton of money that stays in Kansas. Instead of sending it to some other college in some other state, that money stays right here. And by the way, Kansas taxpayers pay a ton of money to KU, K-State, and Wichita State. We are entitled to have these teams play basketball.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'd rather have my politicians actually focus on things that are more important than legislating whether or not teams are playing each other.
Takes 5 minutes to do it. I can write a bill. We can have it passed in 5 minutes.
I don't care. Let me tell you a secret, Paul.
You don't care because you're from KU.
I don't care. I don't care all that much. Like, if they play each other, that's great. Like, when I saw the report that Wichita State and KU were going to be playing each other in basketball, and thought, cool. Like, that's fine.
Yeah,
if they don't play, that's fine. If they don't play, cool, that's fine.
I
just don't care. I don't care one way or another. Leave it up to the coaches to schedule who they see fit. And if the coaches decide they want to schedule, like in this case, great. That's awesome. That's, good for Paul Mills and good for Bill Self for determining that it was going to be a good idea for these two teams to face off against each other for whatever reason, whether that's financially motivated or, if Paul Mills thinks that, it could be potentially that would be a monumental win for his young Shocker program to upset KU. That'd be awesome. Like, whatever the motivation is, that's great. But if they decide they don't want to do it, okay. Cool, we move on. I just don't care. I don't care enough to have these politicians take time out of their day when there are real issues in the state to legislate these two teams playing each other. I just don't care.
Well, maybe we can get them focused on basketball. They won't make a mess of the rest of the stuff they've got to. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Or it takes away their attention from more pressing matters, more important matters. I just don't feel like that's what I need my politicians spending their time on.
10 minutes to pass a bill. You don't have 10 minutes to pass a bill. Come on. Jad, what do you got to say?
I'm sorry, Paul. I don't care what or how easy a bill is. I don't care if it's nominating a new state rodent or whatever it is. Nothing in Topeka takes 10 minutes.
Oh, well.
Gridlock.
Yeah.
Gridlock. And you know what? And think about, and I don't have enough faith in our politicians to think that they wouldn't try to tack on a bunch of other crap that is unnecessary on this bill. They might say, oh, we're doing this for the good of, Wichita State and KU and K-State, and we're legislating this. And then all of a sudden you find out that they've tacked on a bunch of other unnecessary stuff that has nothing to do with the world of sports whatsoever, because that's the way that politics works. So I just don't care enough. I don't want it in the place of, other pressing issues around the state of Kansas. So if they play each other and it looks like they're going to in the regular season, great. I will definitely watch. And you know what I want to call you out here, Paul, because you call me a KU elitist. I'm not a KU elitist. I didn't go to KU. I'm not a KU alum. I've lived in Wichita my entire life. I cheer for both universities. I support both universities equally. I'm not a KU elitist. I'm happy they're playing each other. But if they didn't play each other, my life would go on. I wouldn't lose any sleep. We'd move on. It's all good.
Well, I think that's tremendous, and I apologize for the KU elitist fan. You're a KU flack, so no, that was a joke. I'm just kidding. I didn't mean that either, obviously. But something, I'm gonna go my whole life and not get to enjoy a series, like Missouri KU. I'm gonna go my entire life and not to get to enjoy that KU, Wichita State, K-State triangle of basketball. Some of the greatest basketball in this country comes out of the state of Kansas. And I feel like we're all being robbed from a chance to enjoy what is so great about the state of Kansas sports, and that is college basketball.
I don't know why you're whining about it though, because it's happening.
Whining?
Like the decision was they're playing each other. Like it's going to happen. So they're going to play each other on. Like you're talking about a missed opportunity. It's going to happen, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like
once out of every 30 years. Gee, thanks.
Well, we don't know if
by them, but next time they play in that
back.
case.
It may come back. Who knows? I mean, but at least we know like
I know it won't.
it's a start.
What makes
they're
you
playing
think
once.
What makes you think it's going to come back?
Well, my understanding, and I don't have any official word on this, but speculation is that this is a game that is actually being driven by the NIL collectives. And so you that in there and you've got, and I don't exactly know the logistics and if that's even going to happen or not, but you've got NIL opportunities potentially for the players on both teams. And maybe that ends up being a driving force behind it to make this more of a regular thing. That I'm okay with. I'm okay with that being the driving force as opposed to political pressure in Topeka to make this happen on a regular basis. I'm more okay with that. Let's go to the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Terry is on the line wanting to talk about Wichita State and KU basketball. Terry, good morning. What's on your mind?
Hey guys, how you doing there? Hey,
doing great.
Just a real quick kind of little history for me as a perspective. I grew up here in Wichita, live here now, but I ran cross country and track at the University of New Mexico. And yes, Paul, I still drank coffee during ultra marathons.
Wow.
But anyway, I'm dumb enough to have gotten two different graduate degrees, and one is from Wichita State and one is from KU, and my sister was a K-Stater, both her degrees from there. I think as far as a fan base, I didn't realize until those 2 years I lived in Lawrence to work on that degree that it's not a big deal for people up there at all. It's like K-State loves beating KU, but I didn't realize until I moved up there, that bigger hatred and rivalry for KU was Missouri. It's like, we like beating K-State, but man, we want to pummel Missouri. And really, when I lived up there years ago, it was like nobody even thought about Wichita State as somebody necessarily we wanted to play. Now, I know there's a lot of politics involved in what you guys have been discussing, but I see it as for the KU fan base, it's really not that big a deal unless you're maybe from Wichita and grew up here and have KU ties or, for me, I think it would be great to see them all three play each other. You know what I mean? But it's different than when I was in New Mexico. New Mexico and New Mexico State have never been in the same athletic conference, but they play each other every year at basketball, football, baseball. It's almost an annual thing, and it is a rivalry, what is considered a rivalry game. So I think from a fan base, it just, for people up there in the Lawrence area, it's just not that big a deal. What do you think about that?
Well,
Terry, I think you're right. I mean, I think that, that's always been kind of the mentality of, and I know, Paul jokingly KU elitist, but I think that there is a little bit, and I can say this as a KU fan, I think there is a little bit of that where, they would rather go and beat Missouri, play Missouri in the border showdown. They don't particularly care about K-State. They don't particularly care about Wichita State. I would say that Kansas State cares more about Kansas than Kansas cares about them. And then I would say that, especially once the Greg Marshall era started at Wichita State with basketball, Shocker basketball cared more about KU than vice versa. So I do think that there is now a setting where you've got an opportunity with Paul Mills as the new coach for Shocker basketball to maybe this will end up being a series. Maybe this will be a long-term thing. I will say that I'm looking forward to the matchup. I think it's going to be fun to watch and fun to watch these two schools meet up. But I'll go back to what I said before. I just don't lose any sleep over it if it doesn't happen.
Well, I think you got a good. Oh, Terry, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Paul.
Well, I was just going to say that maybe it doesn't mean a lot to KU people, but it means a lot to people from, let's say, Emporia West. There's a lot of people that live from Emporia West in this state, and Wichita is the largest city in the entire state of Kansas. There's importance to the state that KU people have to understand. This is about the state of Kansas. This isn't just about the University of Kansas. This is about the state of Kansas. This is about how we showcase our state. This would be like, they say Indiana is one of the best states in the country when it comes to basketball, both college and high school. And I think there's a great point for that. High school basketball in the state of Indiana is really something very special, but it can be the same thing here in the state of Kansas. I think it's great for Kansas. I just think it's closed-minded to not understand what this rivalry, K-State, KU, and Wichita State in basketball, one game a year. You can switch back and forth, home one year, away the next year, back and forth with all three teams. And you would turn this thing into something really spectacular and special for the state of Kansas. The Kansas rivalry. I'll give it a nickname already. And I think KU and K-State will probably win more games over time than Wichita State win. And I would think that would make everybody at KU and K-State very happy to be able to do that. But I'll tell you what, this is a quality of life issue if you live in the state of Kansas. What is being withheld from us right now is a joy thing. It's a quality of life issue in the state of Kansas.
Oh, come on. Nothing is being withheld from us. But I can promise you right now, while there are people that, might want to see Wichita State and KU play each other and are thrilled that they're going to be playing each other, there is not a single person in the state of Kansas who feels like their quality is being affected. These two teams are not playing each other. Come on. Like I get the desire to have these two teams play, but nobody is losing sleep about this. And it's great that it's happening. I would love to see it happen more often, but no, I mean, the quality of life thing. Come on, Paul. Yeah. Terry, thanks for the call. Appreciate you calling in and your thoughts on this matchup that's going to be happening on December 29th. I guess my final thought on it, Paul, before we take a break is good for them. I'm glad they got it done. Would love to see it happen more often. I am happy. I'm glad that they're going to be playing each other. Right. Not the end of the world for me one way or another. Right. I know you care about it more than I do.
And I know you're not a hack, and I know you're not an elitist. So there you go.
I think that we're making up a little bit. That might have been was that our first fight ever?
I think
our first argument.
Are you okay? Are you okay? I didn't. I'm
gonna need the commercial break to try to compose myself. I'm a little bit upset right now, but no, I'm good. Definitely a good discussion, and of course, we'll be looking forward to that matchup on December 29th at the T-Mobile Center in Kansas City. Shockers and Jayhawks facing off on the hardwood. When we come back, our final full segment of the show, Paul's favorite sports TV show of all time, coming to an end. We'll talk about that on the other side. It's Sports Daily on KFH. All right, we're back here, our final full segment on a Tuesday at Sports Daily. Tommy Castor and Paul Savage, thanks for joining us all morning long as we've discussed the new baseball coach at Wichita State, Brian Green, who will be on our show on Thursday morning at 10:25 to discuss him coming to Wichita State. Talked about that, talked about the merger with the PGA Tour and Live Golf a little bit earlier on in the program. Anything that you might have missed, you can always go back on the free Odyssey app, download that, or go to kfhradio.com and listen to anything that you might have missed. And we've been teasing it all show, Paul. Your favorite show of all, bit of trouble, misspoke that Hard Knocks was going away. That's a little bit extreme, but
Yes.
it is in some trouble. So explain what's going on with your all-time favorite TV show.
Well, there are certain teams that have to be on that must be on Hard Knocks. It's a contract between HBO and the NFL. And if you're not familiar with Hard Knocks, HBO goes in and does a fantastic job. Puts literally hundreds of cameras all over the football facilities, the offices, meeting rooms, practice fields. There's more cameras out there than you can shake a stick at, and mics everywhere. It's hard to have any privacy within the football complex. But anyway, it is an intrusion. But my experience with cameras and HBO, my one experience was back when HBO came in to film a week at East High School when the Brown brothers were there. And one was a junior, one was a senior. Both those guys were, preeminent recruits in the United States for Division I football. And what I noticed was, you notice it the first day. You act differently the first day. By the second day, you're not noticing it quite as much. By the third day, you act like the cameras aren't there. That's my personal experience. And I think Hard Knocks is when they say they intrude into these football camps that it's a big distraction. I'm not sure I'm buying that. But right now, the NFL needs to find a team for HBO Hard Knocks. Usually the team has been announced by now, and they're promoting it by now, but they're not right now. And part of the problem is nobody wants to do it. A lot of teams think it's a distraction, and maybe it is. Well, in fact, yeah, I think it is a distraction, but I would think for certain franchises, it would be a really great way to market their team, gin up interest in the team where maybe they didn't have it before. And I think there's a lot of opportunities with being on Hard Knocks. I know I've loved it. I've seen every one since it started. I thought it was the best produced, best shot, best sound edited, real-time football program that I've ever seen. And it really tells you what it's really like to be inside a training camp, for instance. So right now we're looking at 4 teams that may be drafted. The NFL can command only 4 teams to be on Hard Knocks. That's the New York Jets, Chicago Bears, New Orleans Saints, and the Washington Commanders. Those are the 4 teams that do not meet any of the criteria as to why you can't be on the show. I don't think any of them want to be on the show. They're going to force the NFL to draft one of them. But everybody else doesn't want to be on it. And that's distressing to me, Tommy. I look at it as a chance to create new fans on your team.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you think I speak so glowingly of the Detroit Lions? You ever noticed how much I'm on board with the Detroit Lions? Do you know why
you're
that
a Dan
is?
Campbell fanboy. Yeah.
And you know why that is? A full season of Hard Knocks with the Detroit Lions. That's why.
Well, I think that out of those 4 teams that you listed, the one that stands out to me, it's got to be the New York Jets, right? Aaron Rodgers with a new team. And then, of course, all the young stars, Breece Hall, and, all the other folks that are there that Robert Saleh has built. And he's a fun character too. That, to me, I would be more intrigued by that than watching the Chicago Bears or the New Orleans Saints, especially the Washington Commanders.
Oh my gosh. That'd be
I think don't you think that's got to be a no-brainer? It's got to be the Jets
well,
doing Hard Knocks, right?
Not so fast, my friend. And here's what my thinking is that the New Orleans Saints, if Coach Gruden comes, if Carr comes to quarterback the Saints, let's say, because
he's there. He's there.
Yeah, he's there now, isn't he? Is he there now? Yeah, he's there now.
Yeah, they signed him.
He's
there.
And Coach Gruden comes to be his position coach or an advisor, an offensive coordinator type / advisor. If he shows up like I guess it's a possibility, man, that could be some fantastic Hard Knocks, my friend. So the New Orleans Saints would be my pick. In fact, it might be my pick anyway, because I don't think you're going to get a lot from Aaron Rodgers at this point, but I think you could probably get a lot with Carr, that group. And I kind of like the New Orleans Saints. Maybe I'm wrong. I think I kind of like the Saints.
Well, I don't know when do they typically release what team it's going to be? I mean, it's got to be fairly soon, right? Because we're in off-season workouts right now. I know mandatory mini camps have already started, so I would imagine we'll have an announcement fairly soon. I wonder if this spells maybe not the end of Hard Knocks, but the beginning of the end, when there are teams that don't want to do it anymore and they just run out of teams to be able to profile.
Well, that's a good thought. I mean, you may be, sadly correct. And oh, by the way, they would have named the team by now so they can start promo. I mean, everything's promo nowadays, and to get people ready to go, because you're looking at an August date when most of this stuff is going to start. They got to start filming in August, and so I don't know. It's sad that teams don't want to do it. It's so well, but I mean, I get the distraction. Man, I get it. Well, I understand it.
I hope you don't lose any sleep over it. We'll find out who that team is going to be, and we'll be back to wrap up the show and tell you what's on tap coming up here in just a couple minutes on Sports Daily.
Save big money on your next project with 11% off everything. Listen to Sports Radio 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Today on a Tuesday on Sports Daily, what's on tap on the network today? Jim Rowan 11, Bob and Jeff at 2, Maggie and Perloff at 4, Zach Gelb at 5, and the Royals continuing on their road trip in Miami, taking on the Marlins. Pre-game at 5:30, a carbon copy of yesterday. Got today on the network. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning for another edition of Sports Daily. We'll preview the NBA Finals and a whole lot more that we didn't get to today. We'll talk about tomorrow on the show. For Jad Chambers, for Paul Savage, I'm Tommy Castor. We'll see you right back here tomorrow morning. Have a great day.
Sports, later news.
Cool.